He kissed his wife goodbye at 5:12 a.m. and drove into the woods. He was never seen again. 8 years later, his truck showed up with another man behind the wheel. They said it was supposed to be a quiet weekend. No work calls, no distractions, just a man, a rifle, and the stillness of North Carolina's Blue Ridge Mountains in early fall. Michael Turner, 43, was the kind of man who never needed much. A simple home, a strong cup of coffee, and every October, like clockwork, 3 days in the woods to breathe, to reset, to disappear into nature. He kissed his wife, Sandra, at 5:12 a.m. on a crisp Friday morning. His silver Ford F-150 was already packed, camo gear in the back, cooler of snacks on the seat, rifle safely stored in the case he'd had for 20 years. He promised to be back by Sunday night, just like every other year. But this year, he never returned. Michael was a well-respected journeyman electrician with nearly 2 decades of experience, working contract jobs at power plants across the Southeast. People described him as quiet, dependable, and careful. Not the kind of man who'd vanish on a whim. Not the kind who left things undone. Michael had hands like corded rope, rough from years of climbing scaffolds and splicing wires, but always gentle when holding his morning coffee or flipping through the Sunday crossword. He wasn't loud. He wasn't flashy. But people trusted him, not just to wire a breaker box, but to show up when he said he would, to do what he promised, and to tell the truth even when it cost him. Every Friday night, without fail, he called his sister Lisa. It didn't matter if he was working an overnight in Savannah or stuck at a motel in Roanoke. He called. They didn't always talk about much football scores, their mom's old chicken pot pie recipe, which dog at the shelter Lisa was thinking about adopting next. But it was the ritual that mattered. Michael believed in rituals. Every October, he took the same hunting trip. Not to kill anything, really. Most years, he came back with nothing but a few blurry pictures of sunrise through pine trees and a sore knee. It wasn't about the game. It was about the stillness, the reset, a chance to be alone with the trees and breathe again before the holidays came rushing in. Neighbors remember him as the guy who'd fix your porch light and refused to take $20 for it. One man recalled how Michael once pulled over in the rain to help him change a flat tire on the way to his own job interview. When the man asked him why, Michael had simply said, "Because I'd want someone to stop for my sister." He kept his tools clean, his promises cleaner, and perhaps most telling of all, inside his garage, in a rusted metal cabinet, was a small box labeled Dad Stuff. Inside were hand-carved wooden toys, a baseball glove still stiff with hope, and a folded pamphlet for a local adoption agency. He had always wanted to be a father, but Sandra never agreed. So he waited. Patiently, quietly, the way Michael always did. When Sandra reported him missing the following Monday morning, she was calm, too calm, some would later say. She told the Ashwood County Sheriff's Department that Michael had gone hunting near the Pisgah Forest, a familiar place to him. Said he needed space, that he'd been stressed lately about temporary layoffs at his last job. Deputies filed a report, but no alarms went off. A grown man going off the grid for a couple days in the woods? Not unheard of. Still, out of protocol, they sent out a few search parties. No truck, no trace, no Michael. What made it strange, stranger than just a missing man, was the lack of anything. No credit card activity, no gas station stops, no phone pings. His hunting license hadn't been used. Even the gatebook at the Forest Ranger Station, where hunters logged their vehicle information, his name wasn't there. The park rangers hadn't seen him. The wildlife cameras never caught him. Even the cadaver dogs came back empty. It was like the earth had swallowed him whole. 3 weeks after he vanished, Sandra received a letter, postmarked from Buffalo, New York. Scrawled in shaky handwriting were just 2 lines. "I'm gone. I need peace. Don't look for me. It wasn't signed, but Sandra insisted it was from Michael, said she knew his handwriting like her own. The authorities accepted it. Just like that, the case shifted from missing person to voluntary disappearance. No crime, no search, just silence. But there was one person who never accepted it. Lisa Turner, Michael's younger sister, a registered nurse in Charlotte, would later say, "They told me he walked away from everything. But I knew my brother. He wouldn't leave his tools, his truck, or me." And it wouldn't be until 8 years later, when a traffic stop in New York turned up a silver Ford F-150, Michael's truck, the same one he supposedly drove off in, that the world finally realized. Michael Turner didn't vanish into the woods. He vanished into someone else's lie. The letter arrived in a plain white envelope with no return address. It was postmarked Buffalo, New York, nearly 500 miles from Ashwood County. Inside, on a single sheet of lined paper, were the words, "I'm gone. I need peace. Don't look for me. No love, Mike. No explanation. Just that." Sandra Turner brought the letter to the sheriff's office the next morning, her face calm, her voice steady. She told the deputy on duty it was obviously from her husband, that the handwriting was his, that maybe, just maybe, he needed space and didn't want to be found. And incredibly, that's where the investigation stopped. The official file was quietly marked as a voluntary disappearance. No crime, no foul play, no further search. By the end of December 2012, just 2 months after Michael went missing, the search effort was closed. His photo remained in the local database, but his case was inactive. His union membership lapsed. His social security number showed no activity. His credit cards remained untouched. It was as if he had died, just without the death certificate. In the weeks that followed Michael's disappearance, Sandra Turner moved through her days like a woman walking on a frozen lake, calm, precise, and never staying too long in one emotional place. While neighbors whispered and coworkers cast curious glances, she kept her routine airtight. Wake at 6:30, coffee by 7, work at 8, home by 5:30. Nothing changed. That in itself was disturbing. But behind closed doors, her routine was far from ordinary. At night, she sat alone in the living room with a notebook in her lap. Not a journal, but a ledger of sorts. A page for timelines. A page for statements. Several drafts of what she called the letter, rewritten again and again in cursive that tried too hard to mimic Michael's. Her handwriting had always been neat, but she added imperfections deliberately, slanting the T, looping the Y, practicing like it was calligraphy for a funeral. She had practiced the story for days before handing the letter to the sheriff's deputy, repeating the lines in front of the mirror, timing her voice, flattening the emotion. She even rehearsed small facial gestures, a brief swallow, a furrowed brow, a sigh just long enough to signal pain but not raise questions. What no one knew, what no one ever saw, was the way she cleaned. She didn't just scrub the counters. She sterilized them. She wiped doorknobs twice. She burned 2 towels in the fire pit out back, saying they were mildewed. And in the laundry room, folded in a basket no one touched, was a pair of Michael's hunting pants, still with soil on the knees, and a faint smell of bleach clinging to the fabric. There was no visible panic, no sudden breakdown, just a quiet, clinical calculation. One night, just before New Year's, she poured herself a glass of wine and walked out to the shed. It was empty now, swept, bleached, aired out. She opened the door and stood there, wine in one hand, the other brushing against the inside wall where the false panel had once hidden so much. She whispered, "It's done," then turned off the light. But Sandra moved on quickly. In April 2013, she filed a life insurance claim on Michael's $65,000 policy. It was approved under a clause that allowed payout after 180 days of verified disappearance. The money came through within weeks. She paid off a few household debts, then quietly relocated to Winston, North Carolina, about 40 miles south. She rented a one-bedroom apartment on the city's south side. Nothing fancy. She returned to work at the housing authority, and she stopped using the name Sandra Turner. Instead, around the office, she introduced herself again as Sandra Monroe, her maiden name. She didn't file for divorce. She didn't request a legal name change. She just adjusted. And over time, Michael Turner became a ghost. Neighbors from the old neighborhood on Cypress Hill Lane described Sandra's behavior after Michael's disappearance as strange. One woman recalled, "She didn't cry. She didn't hold a vigil. She just stopped talking to people. And when asked if she missed her husband, she'd simply say, 'He's gone.' No tears, no breakdowns, just silence." In 2014, a new figure entered the picture, Travis Cole. A handyman, a drifter, a man known for doing small jobs around town, roof patching, painting, minor plumbing. He had a couple of misdemeanor charges in his past, trespassing, property damage, but nothing serious. No fixed business, no steady work, no reputation that stood out. By early 2015, he was living with Sandra. There was no marriage license, no big announcement, just two people quietly sharing a home and slowly erasing the memory of a man who was never truly confirmed dead. By 2018, Sandra listed Travis as her emergency contact on official forms. That same year, she submitted a notarized affidavit to refinance a personal loan she once held jointly with Michael. In it, she wrote, "My husband has not contacted me in over 6 years. He is presumed deceased. No death certificate was provided, but the bank accepted the statement." And another part of Michael Turner's life was closed forever, except not everyone was ready to move on. Lisa Turner, Michael's sister, never believed the letter was real. To her, it felt staged, too vague, too unlike him. Michael didn't run from problems. He didn't abandon people. And he certainly wouldn't vanish without telling Lisa, the one person who had always stood by his side. In 2019, Lisa took matters into her own hands. Frustrated by a lack of answers, she hired a private data tracing firm specializing in dormant vehicles and address histories. Her goal? Find Michael's truck, the silver 1999 Ford F-150 that vanished the same day he did. Lisa Turner wasn't an investigator. She didn't carry a badge. She didn't own a gun. She was a registered nurse who worked 12-hour shifts in the ER and came home with aching feet and bruised wrists. But when the system failed her brother, she stepped into a role no one trained her for, the last voice that refused to go quiet. She started small, old-fashioned. Sticky notes, maps, pins on a corkboard. She went through Michael's emails, phone records, even credit card statements from the weeks leading up to his disappearance. Every detail mattered. She made spreadsheets, built timelines, replayed Sandra's TV interview clip 100 times, mouthing the words like a silent detective. In 2016, she mailed a handwritten letter to the Ashwood County Sheriff's Office requesting an official copy of Michael's missing person report. It was denied, classified as voluntary disappearance. She appealed twice. Both times, the answer came back cold. That same year, she attended a Families of the Missing conference in Raleigh, hoping to find resources. Instead, she found something else: resolve. Another woman, whose husband had vanished 10 years earlier, said to her quietly, "If you're the only one left asking questions, don't stop. That's your job now." Lisa went home and stopped sleeping through the night. She saved up for nearly 2 years to hire the private data tracing firm. The initial consultation fee alone was $800. She didn't tell anyone, not even her girlfriend, who thought she was being obsessive. But Lisa didn't care. The money didn't matter. What mattered was the truck. If she could find the truck, maybe she could find the truth. She took a weekend off in 2019 and drove 400 miles across 3 counties, following a flimsy lead about a junkyard in rural Virginia. The truck wasn't there, but she took photos anyway. She kept everything. Every rejection email, every receipt, every note written in the margins of maps. By then, some of her own family had given up. One cousin told her over dinner, maybe he really did just leave, Lisa. People do that sometimes. She got up, paid the check, and never spoke to him again. Because Lisa knew what most people never understand. When someone you love disappears, silence doesn't mean peace. It means pain that never ends. The search spanned 3 states: North Carolina, Virginia, and New York. Nothing. The vehicle had never been re-registered, never showed up in impound records, and hadn't been serviced at any dealership or garage since late 2012. It was like the truck had vanished too. But as Lisa would learn the hard way, sometimes the road to justice takes years. And sometimes it comes screeching back into view when you least expect it. Because in the spring of 2020, 8 years after her brother disappeared, a routine traffic stop on a quiet New York highway would crack the case wide open. And what officers found wasn't just a truck. It was the truth buried beneath 8 years of lies. It was supposed to be a routine stop. May 27th, 2020, a Wednesday afternoon in Chautauqua County, New York, just 100 miles south of the Canadian border. A state trooper noticed a beat-up gray Ford F-150 with expired Pennsylvania plates drifting slightly on Interstate 86. The driver looked nervous. Older white male, mid-50s, alone. When the trooper approached and asked for ID, the man hesitated, then said his name was Daniel Marsh. No driver's license, no insurance, no registration papers, just a name and a story that didn't quite hold up. So the trooper ran the vehicle identification number straight from the dashboard and door frame. And that's when the system lit up. Match found. Owner, Michael Turner. Status, missing person, Ashwood County, NC, 2012. 8 years. No sightings. No registration. And now, here was the missing truck in motion on a highway being driven by a man using a fake name. The man was immediately taken into custody on suspicion of vehicle theft and false identification. He refused to answer questions, refused to name next of kin, declined to sign intake forms. So they fingerprinted him, and that's when things got even stranger. His real name? Travis Cole. Yes, that Travis Cole. The man who had been living with Sandra Turner for nearly 5 years. The same man she had listed as her emergency contact. The man driving Michael Turner's truck 8 years after he vanished. And now, there was no more hiding. The truck was taken to a secure forensics facility. Though it had been repainted from silver to a muted gray, the VIN was intact. The odometer showed only limited mileage, roughly consistent with occasional, careful use over the past 8 years. But what they found inside was the real breakthrough. Under the passenger seat, tucked deep in the lining, investigators recovered a worn leather wallet containing Michael Turner's old union card, a folded photo of Michael and Sandra from 2009, smiling outside their first home, and most damning of all, a gasoline receipt dated October 14th, 2012, from a station just outside Binghamton, New York, a full day after Michael supposedly left for a hunting trip he never returned from. Which raised the obvious question. Why was Michael Turner's truck in New York the day after he went missing, when his wife said he was headed to the mountains of North Carolina? And how exactly did Travis Cole get it? New York State Police contacted the Ashwood County Sheriff's Department immediately. Within hours, The cold case file was reopened, and the North Carolina Attorney General's office greenlit a multi-state investigation. Over the following weeks, investigators uncovered a treasure trove of lies. At Sandra Turner's Winston apartment, officers executed a search warrant and found a metal filing box with categorized folders of insurance papers, a stack of unsent letters addressed to Michael's sister, Lisa, and most critical, multiple handwritten drafts of a short note nearly identical to the one Sandra received in 2012, the so-called Buffalo letter. One of the drafts even bore internal postal sorting marks from Winston, not Buffalo. Same handwriting, same ink, same exact sentence. I'm gone. I need peace. Don't look for me. Meanwhile, investigators obtained a key marked shed from among Sandra's old belongings. It led them back to the Turners' former home, now owned by a retired couple. In the backyard stood the same wooden storage shed that had once belonged to Michael. The new owners had never used it much. But inside, behind a false panel, investigators discovered something chilling. A concealed compartment large enough to fit a body. Chemical luminol tests revealed medium-level blood spatter. A single hair, later confirmed by mitochondrial DNA to belong to Michael Turner. Beneath the floor, they also found a rusted lockbox containing Michael's work boots, wristwatch, and a valid North Carolina hunting license for 2012 to 2013. Items never mentioned by Sandra or listed in any missing persons inventory. The official theory now changed. Michael Turner had never gone hunting. He never left town. He had likely been killed in or near that shed sometime before sunrise on October 13th, 2012. And the rest? The note, the story, the search, the silence? All fabricated. By June 2020, arrest warrants were issued. Sandra Turner was charged with conspiracy to commit fraud, insurance fraud, destruction of evidence, obstruction of justice. Travis Cole was charged with unauthorized use of a motor vehicle, evidence tampering, knowingly obstructing an investigation. They were taken into custody without incident. No one cried, no one resisted, and as they were led away, not one of them said a word. While headlines focused on Sandra Turner's arrest and the mysterious reappearance of Michael's truck, one woman watched it all unfold in silence. Lisa Turner, Michael's younger sister, had waited 8 long years for that knock on her door. And when it finally came, delivering the news she had feared, fought for, and never stopped chasing, she didn't cry. She simply whispered, "I knew he didn't leave me." Lisa had always believed that something was wrong from the very beginning. Michael wouldn't vanish without a word. He was a man of habits, of loyalty, of morning coffee on the porch and Sunday night phone calls with his sister. He didn't run from responsibility, and he sure as hell didn't run from family. Back in 2012, when the Buffalo letter arrived, Lisa immediately questioned it. He hated Buffalo, she told detectives in 2020. He'd never even been there. But no one listened. The case was cold. The money had been paid. And the woman who claimed to love him had already started rewriting the story. So Lisa did what most people wouldn't. She didn't stop. She tracked every document she could access. She filed inquiries. She hired that private vehicle tracing firm with her own money, knowing full well there was no guarantee. And when the call came in May 2020, telling her they had found the truck in New York, her knees buckled. It wasn't just about the truck, she later said. It was about knowing I hadn't imagined the feeling in my gut, that I wasn't crazy. Back at the Ashwood County Sheriff's Department, the investigation shifted into overdrive. Forensic experts combed through the evidence from Sandra's apartment, the old shed, and Travis Cole's truck. Everything pointed toward a planned disappearance, one choreographed to the smallest detail. But there were still gaps. What had happened that morning? Why was Michael's death staged as a peaceful exit? And most importantly, was this murder or something else? Prosecutors faced a challenge. Without a body or confirmed cause of death, they couldn't file murder charges. But what they did have was overwhelming circumstantial evidence. Blood matching Michael's family DNA on the shed walls. A draft of the fake Buffalo letter with Sandra's handwriting. A wallet full of Michael's belongings hidden in the very truck Travis had been driving. And a pattern of financial deception designed to cash out his life before his body was even cold. This wasn't a mystery anymore. It was a betrayal. In court documents filed in August 2020, investigators laid out their working theory. On the morning of October 13th, 2012, Michael had likely walked out to the shed behind his home, possibly to load gear for his supposed trip. Inside, something happened. A confrontation, maybe an ambush, maybe a weapon. They didn't know how, but the blood patterns told them this. Michael didn't leave Ashwood County. He died in that shed, and everything after that, the letter, the insurance claim, the quiet boyfriend who moved in later, was part of a calculated cover-up. Sandra Turner had painted herself as the grieving wife, then quietly moved on. Travis Cole had stayed in the background, just enough to avoid suspicion, just enough to wait for time to erase the trail. But time doesn't erase truth. And Michael Turner had left behind more than just blood. In September 2020, forensic analysts completed their final reports. One of the most chilling discoveries? A storage receipt tucked inside Sandra's filing box, showing a purchase of cleaning solvents, heavy-duty gloves, and plastic sheeting from a local hardware store, dated October 13th, 2012. The same day Michael supposedly drove away. The same day he likely died. The store's surveillance footage was long gone, but the receipt remained, a timestamp frozen in ink. A breadcrumb they never thought anyone would trace back. Until now. Lisa Turner stood in the courtroom during the pre-trial hearing and made a brief statement. She wasn't emotional. She was surgical. They told the world my brother walked away. But the truth is, he never got the chance. They didn't just take his life. They tried to erase his name. But now, he's back. In January 2021, after months of legal back and forth, Sandra Turner and Travis Cole stood trial. Two people, one courtroom, no more hiding. And as the prosecution began to unravel the story they had kept buried for nearly a decade, the world finally started asking the question that had haunted Lisa Turner every night since 2012. What really happened to Michael Turner in that shed? January 12th, 2021. The courtroom in Luzerne County, North Carolina, was quiet, too quiet. No cameras, no media circus, just family, attorneys, and the low murmur of tragedy finally reaching its reckoning. At the defense table sat Sandra Turner, hair pinned tightly, eyes hollow. Beside her, separated by a court officer, was Travis Cole, his posture slumped, face unreadable. 8 years after Michael Turner vanished into thin air, the people who once claimed to love him most were now on trial. Not for murder, but for everything that followed it. Fraud, forgery, obstruction, deceit. The prosecution wasted no time. Assistant District Attorney Rachel Morrow, known statewide for her composure and clarity, stood before the jury and spoke plainly. This was never a disappearance. This was a deletion. A man was removed from this earth and replaced with a lie, written in Sandra Turner's handwriting, mailed from a town he never set foot in, and cashed in for $65,000. She pointed toward Sandra. She didn't just lose a husband. She buried him. And when that wasn't enough, she brought in Mr. Cole to help finish the job. Evidence flooded in. First came the fake Buffalo letter. A handwriting expert testified under oath that the phrasing, syntax, and pressure patterns on the mailed letter matched drafts found in Sandra's apartment. right down to the loops on lowercase g and the slant of capital I. Then came the ink analysis. The pen used to write the mailed letter? A match to a pack of gel pens ordered through Sandra's workplace office supply account. Coincidence? Not likely. But it wasn't just handwriting and ink that buried Sandra Turner. It was the people, ordinary neighbors, co-workers, and one quiet postal worker who stepped onto the stand and peeled back the mask. First came Carolyn Mercer, a retired neighbor who had lived 2 doors down from the Turners for nearly 20 years. She took the oath with trembling hands, but her voice, once steady, carried a memory no one could ignore. I remember hearing something that morning, she said. October 13th, around 5:30. A bang, not a gunshot, more like something heavy falling. I didn't think much of it until later, until I heard he never came home. Then came Roger Phillips, a hardware store clerk who'd worked the Saturday morning shift for over a decade. He recognized Sandra's face the moment investigators showed him surveillance stills. She was in and out quick, he said. Bought bleach, gloves, a roll of plastic sheeting, and 3 air fresheners. Paid cash. Didn't say a word. But I remember thinking, most folks don't need that much bleach unless they've got a crime scene or a daycare. The courtroom shifted in its seat, but the most piercing testimony came from a young woman named Mia Franklin, a former administrative assistant at the Winston Housing Authority where Sandra worked. She had never spoken publicly before, but now, seated in a navy blazer too big for her frame, she looked straight at Sandra and said, I remember the day the letter came. She walked in holding it like it was a prop. She said, it's from Michael. He's gone. But her voice didn't shake. Her eyes didn't move. She just asked if I could print something for her, a notarized statement for the bank. Mia paused, her voice cracking. I remember thinking, this woman isn't grieving. She's auditioning. Lisa Turner, seated in the second row, clenched her jaw. And then came the moment everyone would talk about for years. The prosecution called Lisa to the stand. She walked slowly, not dramatic, just steady, confident. The courtroom stilled. I'm not here because I want vengeance, she said. I'm here because my brother deserves to be found. Not just his body, his truth. The prosecutor asked her to identify a birthday card entered into evidence. One Michael had mailed her in 2009. Lisa held it in gloved hands. Opened it slowly. Inside it read, to the best sister in the world, don't ever let anyone silence your voice. She looked up. I didn't. And in that instant, Sandra looked away for the first time. Next, the prosecution unveiled the hidden shed compartment. Photos of the false wall, the luminol glow, the pooled blood, and the single hair strand matching Michael Turner's mitochondrial DNA. Crime scene analyst Mark Callister gave chilling testimony. The blood spatter pattern suggests medium velocity impact, consistent with blunt force trauma. There is also evidence of chemical cleanup, the kind used to mask bioresidue. It wasn't just blood. It was cover-up. The room fell silent. And then came the gasoline receipt, dated October 14th, 2012. Location, Binghamton, New York. Found under the passenger seat of Michael's truck. The same truck Travis Cole had been driving when he was arrested. The same truck Sandra claimed had vanished with her husband 8 years ago. It was undeniable. Michael hadn't gone hunting. He'd been taken, his truck rerouted, his voice replaced by someone else's handwriting. But perhaps the most damning moment came when the prosecution introduced a document rarely seen in cold cases. A cleaning supply receipt dated just hours after Michael was last seen. Bleach, gloves, trash bags, plastic tarp, all purchased with Sandra's rewards card at a local hardware store. And yet, she had never mentioned buying them, never mentioned cleaning anything, never mentioned that Michael had never made it to the mountains. The defense? They had little to offer. Sandra's attorney argued there was no murder weapon, no body, no confirmed cause of death. They claimed the letter drafts were personal writings, a way for Sandra to process grief. They said she had every right to move on with Travis after years of abandonment. But the jury wasn't moved, and neither was Lisa Turner, sitting quietly in the second row, hands folded, watching the woman who helped bury her brother now try to bury the truth again. As for Travis Cole, he never took the stand. His lawyer painted him as a passive participant, someone who got pulled into a situation he didn't fully understand. But the evidence said otherwise. He had been living in Sandra's apartment for 5 years. He used Michael's truck. He had fake plates traced to a dead relative's trailer, and he never once came forward. Guilt wasn't just about action. It was about what you allow to happen in silence. And Travis Cole had stayed silent for 8 years. After 3 weeks of testimony and just 6 hours of deliberation, the jury returned. Sandra Turner, guilty on all counts: conspiracy, insurance fraud, destruction of evidence, obstruction of justice. Travis Cole, guilty of being an accessory to fraud and tampering with evidence. No tears, no reaction, just the sound of the gavel, and a legacy of lies collapsing in the cold light of truth. Outside the courtroom, Lisa Turner stood before reporters for the first and only time. Her voice cracked as she said, "They told the world my brother walked away, but the truth just walked back in, and it's wearing handcuffs." April 14th, 2021. The courtroom was packed, but no one spoke. Family members, former co-workers, union representatives, and local press filled the pews in Luzerne County Court, all waiting for the judge to deliver the final word in a case that had once gone cold and then came roaring back to life. On one side sat Sandra Turner, once the grieving wife, now a convicted fraudster. On the other was Travis Cole, the quiet handyman who, for nearly a decade, drove the truck of a man who'd vanished without a trace. And at the center of the courtroom, wearing a black blazer and holding a folded piece of paper in both hands, stood Lisa Turner. Judge Celia Horton called the room to order, then invited Lisa to speak before sentencing. Her voice was calm, but every word struck like thunder. My brother wasn't perfect. He didn't have a big house. He didn't leave behind millions. But what he gave me, and everyone who knew him, was something more valuable than all of that. Trust, integrity, dependability. She turned towards Sandra, but didn't flinch. You didn't just lie about what happened. You tried to erase who he was. And Travis, you didn't kill him, but you helped bury him every single day you kept that lie alive. She paused, long enough for everyone to hear the quiet between the words. 8 years, I sat with that silence. And today, I'm giving it back to you. Judge Horton took the bench and delivered her decision with precise finality. Sandra Turner was sentenced to 25 years in a North Carolina State correctional facility, with no eligibility for parole during the first 17 years. You didn't just fabricate a disappearance, the judge said. You orchestrated a deception for profit. And then, when the world forgot about Michael Turner, you cashed in that silence. Travis Cole received 14 years in state prison for his role in the cover-up, unauthorized use of Michael's vehicle, and obstruction. You may not have raised your hand against Michael Turner, the judge said to him, but you raised no voice to defend the truth. And silence is a choice. Outside the courthouse, there were no loud protests. No camera crews rushing the scene. Just Lisa, holding a small framed photo of Michael. It was the same one found in his wallet, the one that had sat forgotten under the seat of that Ford F-150 for nearly a decade. A quiet moment, a private victory. Justice, not perfect, but finally delivered. By June 2021, a North Carolina judge issued a final ruling. Michael Turner was declared legally deceased. No body had ever been recovered. No remains. No gravestone. But now, at least in the eyes of the law, his name was no longer trapped between missing and forgotten. That summer, Lisa organized a private memorial in their hometown of Ashwood. Dozens came, friends from high school, old coworkers, members of his union, even the sheriff who first took the missing person report back in 2012. Lisa stood under a white tent and read a short eulogy. They buried the truth for 8 years. But now my brother gets his name back. Lisa stood under a white tent and read a short eulogy. They buried the truth for 8 years. But now my brother gets his name back. When she stepped off the makeshift podium, a soft drizzle had begun to fall. One of those light, whispering rains that feels more like memory than weather. People stayed in their seats anyway. No one moved. It was as if the entire town held its breath, waiting for something more. Lisa made her way to the old elm tree near the fence line. Michael used to sit there when they were kids, legs dangling off the tire swing he insisted was just right, even though it always leaned a little too far to one side. In her hand, she held a sealed envelope. Inside, it was a letter she had written to Michael a week after he disappeared. She never sent it, of course. Never even told anyone she had written it. It read, "I don't know where you are, or if you're even alive. But if you left because you needed space, I forgive you. If you're hurt, I'll find you. And if you're gone, I'll make sure the world remembers you. Every bit of you." She folded the letter again, kissed the envelope, and tucked it into the roots beneath the tree where the earth had softened from rain. Not a grave, just a promise. As she stood, her eyes caught sight of an old friend, Tommy Whitaker, who'd worked with Michael during their apprenticeship years. He walked over slowly, clutching a thermos in one hand and something wrapped in cloth in the other. "I thought you might want this," he said. Inside the cloth was Michael's favorite wrench, engraved with his initials and scratched from 2 decades of use. Lisa smiled through the tears that finally came. "Thank you," she whispered. Tommy nodded. He never loaned it to anyone but me. Said tools were like people. You gotta know which ones you can trust. Later that evening, after everyone had left, Lisa remained behind. The funeral tent had been taken down, the folding chairs packed away, but she sat on a wooden bench by the tree, watching fireflies flicker against the darkening sky. She thought of Michael's laugh, low and quiet, the kind that made you lean in to hear it. She remembered the time he taught her how to jumpstart a car at age 15, even though he had to stand in the rain for an hour to do it. She remembered the phone call in 2006, the night after their mom died, when Michael said, "We're still a team, you and me. The world doesn't get to take that from us." And for a moment, sitting there in the silence, she could almost believe he was beside her again, elbows on his knees, coffee in hand, watching the stars and making up stories about what each one meant. But he wasn't, and he never would be. Still, she had done what she promised. He hadn't been forgotten, and now neither would the truth. In partnership with IBW Local 1049, Lisa helped establish the Michael Turner Memorial Scholarship, a trade school grant for adults pursuing second careers in electrical work, just like Michael once did. The fund launched its first round of applications in early 2022. The first scholarship went to a 38-year-old single father named Sean, who had been laid off during the pandemic and wanted to start over. Michael's story, once silenced, was now helping others rebuild their own. Sean Parker had never heard of Michael Turner until the day he received the scholarship email. He'd been working minimum wage night shifts, trying to raise 2 sons after losing his job during COVID. He wasn't looking for pity, just a second chance. At the award ceremony, Lisa shook his hand and handed him a small plaque engraved with Michael's name. When Sean asked about the man behind the scholarship, Lisa smiled, just faintly, and said, "He never finished college, never built a mansion, but he showed up. He worked hard, and he made people feel safe. That's worth more than degrees and dollars. Lisa stayed behind after the ceremony. As the others mingled and ate cake, she sat outside on the campus steps, holding a folded photo of Michael in her hand, the same one found under the seat of his truck. "I hope you be proud," she whispered. That fall, Sean sent Lisa a letter. Handwritten, he said he had passed his certification exam and landed a job with a local electric co-op. He signed the letter. "For Mr. Turner, the man who gave me my second chance, even in silence. I'll carry your name with pride. Sean." Lisa framed the letter and placed it on the shelf beside Michael's photo. And in that moment, for the first time in nearly a decade, she didn't feel haunted by a question. She felt a little lighter. Michael Turner never came home, but a piece of him had. As for the silver Ford F-150, it sits in a secured state evidence lot in Scranton, New York, weather-worn, stripped of plates, paint faded to dull gray. Prosecutors and investigators all agree. Without that truck, there may never have been a case. No receipt, no wallet, no proof that Michael Turner was ever alive beyond 2012. But that old truck carried more than metal and mileage. It carried the truth. And after 8 years in hiding, it finally brought Michael home. Justice, they said, had been served. Sandra Turner was behind bars. Travis Cole, too. The fake letter, the insurance fraud, the false disappearance, all unraveled piece by piece. But one truth still hung in the air like fog that wouldn't lift. What exactly happened to Michael Turner? In that shed, no one knew for certain. The prosecution had built a solid case on blood evidence, financial motive, and years of deception. But there was no murder charge because there was no body. And without a body, there was no cause of death. No time of death. No weapon. Just a void, literal and emotional, at the heart of the case. Investigators believe Michael died on the morning of October 13th, 2012, sometime between 4:45 and 6 a.m. That's when Sandra claimed he left for his hunting trip. That's when the receipt for bleach and plastic sheeting was time-stamped. That's when neighbors recalled hearing a loud banging noise near the backyard. But beyond that, only 2 people ever knew what really happened. And both of them are now in prison, refusing to talk. There are 3 leading theories among investigators. Blunt force trauma in the shed. Based on blood spatter patterns and medium-velocity impact stains, it's believed Michael may have been struck from behind, possibly during an argument or as part of a staged accident, poisoning or drugging. Some believe Sandra may have drugged Michael the night before and then staged the shed to cover her tracks. However, there's no toxicology data to confirm this, because his body has never been recovered, burial or burning. A disturbing but plausible theory suggests Michael's body may have been moved after death, either buried somewhere off-site or disposed of by other means. The plastic tarp, the cleaning solvents, and the complete lack of remains suggest a level of planning more calculated than impulsive. Whatever the truth is, it still lies buried. Somewhere. Sandra Turner is currently serving her sentence at the State Correctional Institution at Muncie, a medium-security facility for female offenders in central Pennsylvania. Sources say she remains mostly isolated, doesn't talk to other inmates, doesn't receive visitors, and has never shown remorse. She has not filed an appeal. She has not spoken to Lisa Turner. And when asked in an internal interview whether she had anything to say about Michael, she said only, "He's gone. Let it be." Travis Cole, now inmate number 631047, is housed at SCI Benner Township. Unlike Sandra, he has expressed interest in parole down the road. But parole officers say his refusal to cooperate fully and his silence about Michael's fate will weigh heavily in future hearings. He has never admitted to moving Michael's body, never explained how he got the truck, Never even acknowledged knowing Michael at all. "It wasn't my idea," he once muttered during intake. "I just helped her after." But what after meant, he's never explained. Lisa Turner still lives in Charlotte. She keeps a photo of her brother on the mantle, same photo from the wallet found in his truck. And next to it sits a folded note, preserved in a glass frame. Not the fake Buffalo letter, but a real one. A birthday card Michael sent her in 2009. "To the best sister in the world, don't ever let anyone silence your voice." She didn't. Lisa visits the IBW scholarship recipients each year, hands them a plaque, shakes their hand, tells them about her brother, about the man who never missed work, never missed a call, and never, ever stopped being decent, even when the world around him did. But when people ask her if she feels peace, she pauses. There's peace, but there's also an empty chair. And I don't know where my brother is. I just know he deserved better. In 2023, the Ashwood County Sheriff Department officially classified the Michael Turner case as closed, no body recovered. A footnote in the file reads, "Presumed deceased, believed victim of homicide, remains unrecovered. Case built upon circumstantial and forensic evidence. No exhumation, no memorial marker, just the truck, the shed, and the story that almost disappeared with him." On the 10th anniversary of Michael's disappearance, Lisa visited the old property in Ashwood one last time. The new homeowners allowed her to walk the backyard. She stood beside the shed, now overgrown with ivy, and placed a single white carnation on the grass. She whispered 3 words into the breeze. "You were found." Then she walked away. They say time heals all wounds. But time doesn't heal the wounds that never got a name. Time doesn't close a chapter that was never finished. And time doesn't forgive the kind of betrayal that wears the face of someone you once kissed goodnight. 10 years after Michael Turner walked out into the morning air, believing it would be another peaceful hunting trip, his name finally rests in peace. But not his body, not the whole truth, not the pieces of him still scattered across a timeline built on silence. Sandra Turner and Travis Cole sit in prison today, serving their time. But justice isn't always loud. There are no TV interviews, no viral headlines, just a sister who refused to stop asking the same question over and over. "Where's my brother?" And in the end, she didn't get all the answers, but she got enough. Enough to restore his name. Enough to prove he didn't run. Enough to tell the world that Michael Turner existed and that he mattered. The shed is still standing. The truck is still in storage. But the lie that kept this case buried for 8 years? That's gone now. And in its place is a lesson that echoes through every cold case file in America. Sometimes the people closest to us are the ones who build the perfect story to cover the perfect crime. Sometimes love doesn't turn into hate, it turns into strategy. And sometimes the thing that finally brings the truth to light is a single piece of paper written by the wrong hand, sent from the wrong city, and believed by the wrong people. Michael Turner was never supposed to vanish. He was supposed to come home Sunday night, put his boots by the door, and tell Sandra about the trees, the deer, the quiet. But instead, she made sure he never came home at all. She didn't shoot him. She didn't stab him. She erased him, like a name on a dry erase board, wiped clean. Except the board was her backyard, and the marker was soaked in blood. If this story left you breathless, you're not alone. Stories like Michael Turner's are more than just crimes. They're about the people left behind, the voices that refuse to go quiet, the siblings, the friends, the coworkers who remember the good in someone, long after the bad tries to bury them. So tonight, if you feel safe in your home, if you trust the people around you, if you believe in love, in truth, in justice, remember Michael Turner, because sometimes the only thing standing between a lie and the truth is someone who refuses to stop asking the hard questions. If this story moved you like it moved us, please hit that like button. Share this video with someone who believes justice is never too late. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful true crime stories posted every single week. Because sometimes the smallest clue unlocks the biggest secret. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay aware, and as always, trust your instincts.